It's just a truck. That's what they told the network. A big, ordinary Texas pickup with nothing special under the hood. But nothing about this vehicle was accidental. The truck that Cordell Walker drives through 8 seasons of Walker, Texas Ranger, started life as a GMC, switched brands mid-show, became the centerpiece of a multi-million-dollar corporate deal, and outlived the production company that built the show from scratch. These are 20 weird facts about Chuck Norris's Texas Ranger truck. Fact 20. The show was originally built on a completely different truck season, when Walker doesn't drive a Dodge. Not even close. The truck that Cordell Walker drives through the show's opening episodes is a GMC Sierra. Blue, solid, and completely unremarkable by the standards of what was coming. There is no product placement deal behind the GMC. No corporate sponsor. No Chrysler executive watching the rushes and writing checks. The Sierra is simply there because the production needed a truck, and that was the truck they put in front of the camera. The GMC phase of Walker's automotive history is the forgotten chapter of the entire vehicle story, overshadowed completely by what replaced it from Season 2 onward. But it matters. It establishes the visual template of what Walker's truck is supposed to represent. Big, American, capable, a working vehicle for a working lawman who doesn't need style points. He needs something that starts in the heat and doesn't complain when he drives it through a fence. The GMC Sierra was all of those things. It was also completely replaceable, as Chrysler was about to demonstrate with an offer the production couldn't refuse. Fact 19. Chrysler paid to become part of the show. From Season 2 onward, Walker drives a Dodge Ram, not because the character decided to upgrade, because Chrysler wrote a check and negotiated one of the most visible product placement deals in American television history. The arrangement was comprehensive and deliberately structured. Walker drove the Ram. Other members of the cast drove other Chrysler and Dodge vehicles. And the villains, every single antagonist across 8 seasons of the show, were handed the keys to General Motors or Ford products. This was not a creative coincidence. It was a contractual arrangement. The good guys drove Chrysler. The bad guys drove the competition. Every week, on every episode, in every chase sequence, and every arrival at a crime scene, the message was encoded into the show's visual language without a word of dialogue being spoken about it. The Andy Griffith Show had done something comparable with Ford decades earlier. Walker, Texas Ranger took the same principle, applied it to a name-80s action drama, and ran it for 7 continuous seasons until the show itself ended. The Dodge Ram wasn't Walker's truck. It was an advertisement that learned to act. Fact 18. The 1994 redesign shocked the entire industry and arrived right on cue. The timing of the Dodge Ram's arrival in Walker, Texas, Ranger was, from Chrysler's perspective, commercially perfect. When the Ram replaced the GMC Sierra at the start of Season 2, it arrived in its completely redesigned 1994 form. A body style so dramatically different from any pickup that had preceded it that the automotive industry was still processing the shock. The new Ram abandoned the rounded, car-derived styling that had defined American pickups for decades and went aggressively in the opposite direction. A massive, flat-faced, big-rig-inspired grille, a hood line that telegraphed size and aggression before the vehicle even moved. It looked like a truck that was trying to intimidate you from a standing start. Placed in a television show watched by millions of Americans every Saturday night, the redesigned Ram had its profile announced to a national audience at exactly the moment Chrysler needed maximum visibility for its new design language. Walker didn't just drive the truck, he was the truck's national launch campaign. Every time that bullseye grille appeared on a CBS Saturday night, Chrysler got free advertising that no marketing budget could replicate. Fact 17. Canon Television started the show and then ran out of money. The production company that developed Walker, Texas Ranger from initial concept to first broadcast was Canon Television. The same Canon Films empire of Golan and Globus that had produced Norris's earlier film work, and Canon Television ran out of money in the middle of Season 1. Not after a full season, in the middle of one. The funding collapsed mid-production, leaving CBS holding a completed 2-hour pilot movie and nothing else. A lesser network in a weaker position might have cut its losses and shelved the project. CBS did the opposite. The network aired the pilot on the 21st of April, 1993, and the numbers that came back were extraordinary. A 16.5 rating and a 27 share, performing across every age demographic from children to adults over 50. CBS immediately partnered with Columbia Pictures Television to take over production financing and bring the show back from the edge. Cannon's collapse was supposed to be a fatal blow. It turned out to be an audition. The show passed the audition in its first 2 hours on air, and the truck became the symbol of everything that came after. Fact 16. Paul Haggis co-created the show before winning an Academy Award. Walker, Texas Ranger was co-created by Leslie Grafe and Paul Haggis. The same Paul Haggis who would go on to write and direct Crash, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 2006, and who co-wrote the screenplay for Clint Eastwood's $1 Million Baby, which won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture in 2005. Haggis left the Walker production early in its development, as the show was still being produced by Cannon Television. His departure left co-creator Grafe and executive producer David Mosinger to take the series forward, but Haggis's fingerprints on the show's foundational concept are undeniable. The moral framework, the character's code of honor, the deliberate blending of Western genre conventions with contemporary law enforcement. All of that was established in the early development period that Haggis shaped. A future double Oscar-winning filmmaker built the world that Walker's truck drives through for 203 episodes. That detail gets buried completely under the karate kicks and the Chrysler deal. It shouldn't. Well, fact 15. J. Michael Straczynski also left early to make Babylon, Finva. Paul Haggis was not the only significant creative departure from the Walker, Texas Ranger development team. J. Michael Straczynski, who served as supervising producer during the show's initial development period at Cannon Television, also left the project early. Straczynski departed to develop and produce Babylon 5, the science fiction series that would air from 1993 to 1998 and is still regarded as one of the most narratively ambitious television productions of the 1990s. So, the early development of Walker, Texas Ranger, lost 2 of its most creatively significant figures before the show had even completed its first season. What remains extraordinary is what the show became in their absence. Not a creative collapse, not a watered-down version of someone else's vision. In a television institution that ran for 8 full seasons, 203 episodes, and broadcast in over 100 countries. Walker's truck was built on a foundation that its 2 most artistically ambitious architects had already vacated. The truck kept driving anyway. Fact 14. The show was sued for $500 million before it found its audience. The truck had barely made it through its first season when the lawsuits arrived. Director Steve Carver and his production partner Yoram Ben-Ami filed a $500 million lawsuit against CBS, alleging that Walker, Texas Ranger, was too derivative of the 1983 Chuck Norris film Lone Wolf McQuade, which Carver had directed. The legal argument was straightforward. Both properties featured Chuck Norris as a maverick member of the Texas Rangers. Both centered on a lone wolf enforcer who combined martial arts with law enforcement. Both drew directly from Western genre conventions applied to a contemporary setting. The case dragged through the legal system for years, while the show itself continued airing, building its audience, and embedding Walker's Dodge Ram into American cultural consciousness. The case was ultimately resolved when Orion Pictures granted CBS a retroactive license to use Lone Wolf McQuade as the basis for the series, effective from the 1st of January 1990, continuing in perpetuity. The truck that kept showing up on Saturday night television was legally contested property for a significant portion of its own run. Fact 13. Norris agreed to do television on one condition. Chuck Norris was 52 years old when Walker, Texas Ranger premiered. He was an established film star who had spent the 1980s building a franchise with Cannon Films. Television was a step that not every film star was willing to take. Norris took it, but only on a specific condition. He required that the show maintain a clear and uncompromising moral direction, not just clean language or reduce violence, a genuine ethical framework embedded into every episode. Characters who didn't use drugs, stories that closed with justice rather than ambiguity, Community involvement and social responsibility written into the show's DNA at the script level. Norris wanted the truck to be driven by a man that young viewers could look up to without reservation. He said in 1994 that the show was about justice fighting injustice, and that all the action was done with a moral background. His condition was accepted. The show's moral architecture was built around that agreement, and that decision, more than the Chrysler deal, more than the Saturday night time slot, more than the roundhouse kicks, is what made Walker, Texas Ranger a show that parents let their children watch for 8 consecutive years. Fact 12. The show was inspired directly by a film, and the creators were sued for it. The connection between Walker, Texas Ranger, and Lone Wolf McQuade is not a matter of vague creative influence. It is the explicit origin point of the entire series. When producers Albert S. Ruddy, Leslie Grafe, Paul Haggis, and Christopher Kanan began developing the CBS series in the early 1990s, they took the 1983 McQuade film as their direct prototype. They redesigned the character of J.J. McQuade into Cordell Walker, transplanting the same fundamental archetype, a solitary Texas Ranger and former Marine with a martial arts background and a deep personal code, from feature film to episodic television. Lone Wolf McQuade was itself a deliberate revisionist Western, consciously modeled on the iconography of Sergio Leone's spaghetti Western films. What the Walker producers did was take that already layered character and add 8 seasons of episodic moral storytelling, a partner, a love interest, a Cherokee heritage backstory, and a gray Dodge Ram that appeared in almost every scene. The truck is the visible link in that chain of creative evolution, from Italian cinema to American television. Fact 11. Walker's truck had an in-show continuity history that most viewers never noticed. Walker didn't start driving the gray Dodge Ram in his fictional past. The show built a quiet internal timeline for his vehicle choices that stretches back years before the series begins. According to the season 4 episode Swan Song, Walker drove a burgundy Chevrolet C1500 extended cab pickup truck as far back as June of 1988, 5 years before the show's premiere. By November of that same year, in-show continuity places him behind the wheel of a Chevrolet El Camino. Then comes the blue GMC Sierra, visible in season 1. And finally, from season 2 onward, the gray Dodge Ram that the audience knows. This internal vehicle timeline exists without any fanfare. No episode addresses it. No character comments on the upgrade. It is simply embedded in the show's background mythology for the small number of viewers dedicated enough to track the continuity through multiple seasons. The truck's on-screen history is longer and more detailed than anyone involved in the production ever announced publicly. It is one of the show's genuinely hidden vehicle facts, sitting in plain sight across 8 years of television. Fact 10. The pilot drew a massive rating and saved the entire production. Before the truck became an icon, it almost never appeared on screen at all. Canon Television's funding collapse had left CBS with a single completed pilot and no production infrastructure to continue. The decision to air the pilot was a calculated gamble by a network that had no guarantee of a return on its investment. The result was unambiguous: a 16.5 rating, a 27 share. Strong performance across every single demographic category from the youngest to the oldest viewers. Those were not numbers a network walked away from. Those were numbers a network built a Saturday night around. CBS moved immediately to secure new production financing, partnered with Columbia Pictures Television, and ordered the show forward. The Dodge Ram deal with Chrysler followed as the series' commercial infrastructure was rebuilt on a firmer financial foundation. Every season of Walker that followed, every episode, every frame of the truck pulling up to a crime scene or accelerating through a Texas highway, all of it traces directly back to that first night's numbers. One pilot, one audience, one decision. The rest is 8 seasons. Fact 9. Villains were contractually required to drive the competition. The product placement architecture of Walker, Texas Ranger, went far beyond simply putting Norris in a Dodge Ram and calling it done. The deal with Chrysler was comprehensive enough to dictate vehicle choices for the antagonists. The show's villains, every criminal, every gang leader, every corrupt official across 8 seasons of storytelling, drove General Motors or Ford products. This was not a creative decision. It was a commercial contract written into the production. What it created, whether intentionally or as a side effect, was a visual moral code embedded in the show's vehicle language. Every time a GM or Ford appeared prominently on screen in Walker, Texas Ranger, it was doing narrative work. It was signaling to the audience, before a single line of dialogue, that the person driving it was the adversary, the truck as storytelling shorthand, the brand as character indicator. No other American television production of the 1990s systematized its vehicle choices into a moral taxonomy as thoroughly or as commercially as Walker, Texas Ranger did across its entire run. Fact 8. The show beat the competition in its time slot for years. Critics were not kind to Walker, Texas Ranger from the beginning. Entertainment Weekly awarded it a C+. Various television critics called it corny, predictable, and formulaic. One particularly thorough dismissal described the acting as making William Shatner seem like Marlon Brando. None of it mattered. The truck kept arriving, the roundhouse kicks kept landing, and the Saturday night audience kept tuning in with a consistency that the show's critical detractors could not explain away. By May of 1994, less than one full season into its run, the Los Angeles Times was reporting that Walker, Texas Ranger had beaten its competition in its time slot and helped CBS maintain its position as the dominant network on Saturday nights. Critics said the show was in slow motion. The ratings said the show was outrunning everything in its lane. The gap between critical reception and audience loyalty was wider on Walker, Texas Ranger than on almost any comparable show of its era. The truck that critics dismissed drove past everything they put in front of it for 8 consecutive years. Fact 7. The show broadcast in over 100 countries. Walker's gray Dodge Ram became a globally recognized vehicle without anyone in the production planning for global recognition. The show was built for a CBS Saturday night audience in the United States. It was designed around the specific cultural grammar of the American West: cowboy hats, Texas landscapes, martial arts, and a particular brand of plain-spoken moral clarity. None of that should have been universally translatable. And yet, Walker, Texas Ranger, broadcast in over 100 countries across its run. The truck appeared on screens in Europe, Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and South America. In Kenya, KBC picked up the series in the mid-2000s after the CBS run had already ended, and audiences who had never set foot in Texas responded to the show's moral architecture with the same loyalty that American viewers had shown from 1993 onward. The gray Ram pulling up to a problem and Walker stepping out to solve it turned out to speak a language that didn't require translation. A truck, a man, a code. It worked everywhere they shipped the tapes. Fact 6. Conan O'Brien made the truck famous for a completely different reason. The Dodge Ram became culturally immortal in a way the Chrysler marketing department never anticipated, thanks to Conan O'Brien and a segment on late night that became one of the show's most beloved running jokes. O'Brien installed what he called the Walker Texas Ranger lever, a giant red lever on his set that, when pulled, triggered a random clip from Walker, Texas Ranger playing out of context. The clips were almost always bewildering. Walker jumping out of a plane and punching someone. Walker being shot in the back while proposing marriage. Haley Joel Osment's character unexpectedly announcing a terminal illness to a room full of strangers. The lever segment ran for years. It attracted a new generation of viewers to Walker, Texas Ranger, who had never watched the show in its original CBS run. Viewers who discovered the truck, the kicks, and the relentless moral resolution of every episode entirely through the lens of Conan's comedy. Norris eventually appeared on late night himself, in character as Walker, performing a parody of the show's action sequences with O'Brien. The truck that Chrysler had paid to put on American television became a comedy icon through a late-night lever. No marketing campaign could have bought that outcome. Fact 5. Chuck Norris sang the theme song. The show's theme, Eyes of a Ranger, is performed by Chuck Norris himself, not a professional session singer hired to deliver a polished television theme. The star of the show, a martial artist and former Air Force serviceman who had built his screen career on physical performance and minimal dialogue. Norris sang the theme. He recorded it, and it played over the opening credits of Walker, Texas Ranger for the bulk of the show's run, accompanying the sequence of images that included the truck arriving, Walker riding a horse, and the inevitable roundhouse kick delivered against the skyline. One television critic, noting the theme's existence, observed dryly that this was the first and only time he could recall Norris being trusted with performing his own theme music, and suggested that Roy Orbison, he was not. The theme was absent from the show's 2005 television movie Trial by Fire, a decision that longtime fans noted with some displeasure. After 8 seasons of Norris delivering the musical equivalent of a promise that justice was coming, accompanied always by the image of the gray ram rolling through the Texas landscape, its absence from the final chapter felt like the truck arriving without the driver. Fact 4. The show's production company changed names. Mid-run Walker, Texas Ranger was not produced by the same entity from first episode to last. The production went through 3 distinct phases across its 9-season run. Canon Television handled the initial development and the ill-fated first season before its funding collapsed. Top Kick Productions, Chuck Norris's own production company, carried the show from seasons 1 through 5, a period covering the GMC Sierra handoff to the Dodge Ram and the entire establishment of the show's audience. Then, from season 6 through to the finale in 2001, production responsibilities shifted to Norris Brothers Entertainment, a company operated by Chuck and his brother Aaron. The same Aaron Norris who had been stunt coordinator on Missing in Action, who had directed Braddock, Missing in Action 3, and who had been a constant presence in the Canon Films era of his brother's career. The truck drove across all 3 production phases without a single visible change to its role in the show. Behind the camera, the company names changed. In front of it, the gray ram pulled up to the same curb. Walker stepped out, and justice arrived on schedule every Saturday night. Fact 3. The Texas Rangers made Chuck Norris and his brother honorary captains. On the 2nd of December 2010, Texas Governor Rick Perry named Chuck Norris and his brother Aaron Norris honorary Texas Ranger captains. The ceremony acknowledged the role that Walker, Texas Ranger, had played in elevating the profile and cultural standing of the actual Texas Rangers law enforcement division. Perry said in his speech that the brothers had helped raise the Texas Rangers to what he called truly mythical status. Think about what that means in practical terms. A television show built initially on a collapsed production company's pilot and a massive audience rating, running on CBS for 8 seasons on the strength of a Chrysler product placement deal and a star's insistence on moral clarity. That show had enough cultural impact to earn its lead actor an honorary commission from the actual law enforcement division it depicted. The gray Dodge Ram pulled up in front of real Texas Ranger history and was acknowledged as having done something genuinely significant for the organization's public identity. Fiction and institutional reality had converged completely. Walker wasn't real. The honor was. Fact 2. The truck got a final upgrade for the 2005 movie. The show ended in May of 2001. The gray Dodge Ram that had carried Walker through 8 seasons and 203 episodes was retired with the series. 3 years later, CBS produced Walker, Texas Ranger, Trial by Fire, a television movie that reunited the cast and returned Norris to the role he had defined for 8 years of Saturday nights. When Walker arrived on screen in Trial by Fire, he was not driving the gray extended cab Ram. He was driving a 2006 Dodge Ram SRT 10 pickup, Viper-powered, this fire-breathing. A vehicle that bore no resemblance to the workmanlike law enforcement truck of the series' long television run. The Chrysler relationship had not ended with the show. It had simply escalated. The SRT-10 was not a Texas Ranger's working vehicle. It was a performance statement, a farewell gift to the character that said he had graduated from the tool of the job to the symbol of something larger. The bullseye grill that audiences had watched for years came back in its most aggressive form for Walker's final chapter. And then, the cliffhanger at the end of the movie was never resolved. The truck drove off screen and never came back. Fact 1. The truck was the most effective product placement deal in 90s television. 40 years into the history of television product placement, The Dodge Ram deal in Walker Texas Ranger stands as one of the most thoroughly executed brand integrations in American television history. It lasted 7 continuous seasons. It structured the show's entire vehicle casting, heroes in Chrysler products, villains in the competition. It arrived at the exact moment the Ram's industry-changing redesign needed national visibility. It rode a Saturday night audience of millions of loyal viewers every week for nearly a decade. And it survived the cancellation of the show itself, extending into the 2005 television movie with an upgraded model. No other product placement deal of the 1990s operated at this scale, with this consistency across this many seasons, with this degree of narrative integration. The truck was not a prop with a logo on it. It was a character. It had an internal continuity history. It had a contractual role in establishing who was righteous and who was not. And it drove into the consciousness of over 100 countries without anyone in those countries necessarily knowing that they were watching an advertisement. That is not a product placement deal. That is a masterpiece of commercial television architecture. From a GMC Sierra that nobody remembers, to a Dodge Ram that defined an entire decade of Saturday night television, to an honorary Texas Ranger commissions and a Viper-powered farewell, Walker's truck is one of the most quietly extraordinary vehicles in television history.